listened to the Telepathy Tapes, so you don't have to. The Telepathy Tapes aired from 2004 to 2005 and is a documentary podcast by filmmaker Ty Dickens that explores claims of ESP and, specifically, alleged telepathic abilities in non-speaking autistic individuals. Now, this series highlights cases where non-speakers communicate complex thoughts through a method known as S2C, which is a surprisingly controversial method of communication that has taken the internet and the autism world by storm. I did the research, I listened to the tapes, so you don't have to. Welcome back to the Alethea Project. Now, I first stumbled upon this topic completely by accident. I was scrolling Spotify looking for road trip entertainment, and the Telepathy Tapes popped up on my list of recommendations. And after reading the description, honestly, I was a bit skeptical because obviously this sounds both intriguing and absolutely completely impossible. So, of course, I had to give the series a listen for myself to find out just how scientific their proof truly was. The podcast itself was absolutely astounding, to put it mildly, and I'm going to do my absolute best to try and describe it for you. But of course, you are free to give them a listen yourself if you ever feel that my explanation is inadequate or you get your curiosity piqued. I will link them down below at Spotify links so you can check them out. But for now, let's assume that you are coming in completely cold here. The Telepathy Tapes was published in 2005, like I mentioned, and is a viral documentary podcast series. It was created to kind of explore the ideas behind ESP and autism, and this series quickly became a massive cultural phenomenon. It briefly upseated the top shows on global charts in 2025. And the primary reason that the series became so popular is because it transformed scientific and spiritual investigation into one singular, very radical claim that non-speaking autistic individuals possess telepathic abilities. Obviously, this is an extremely bold claim and kind of a difficult one for most people to wrap their minds around. So this podcast starts from the very beginning, explaining kind of how Kai found herself interested in this particular topic, as well as how she got connected with different families and scientists actively investigating the connection between non-speaking and telepathy. The podcast follows Dickens herself as she investigates families who have non-speaking children from around the world. Most of them are diagnosed with severe ASD or apraxia. She also includes perspectives from Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell, who is a neuroscientist and psychiatrist. And the process for each of these families was relatively the same. It begins with parents describing moments where their children knew things that they shouldn't know, such as what a parent did while they were running an errand, or a specific word that mom or dad was thinking. In order to try and prove that this was something that was actually happening, the Telepathy Tapes team rigged a room, usually a family room or, common bedroom area, to run a test. They made it quite literally impossible for these children to see what it was that their parents were seeing. They covered windows, they covered mirrors, they took away any type of technology that could be recording and transmitting any audio. They moved the parents to a completely separate room, set up cameras, brain monitors, all this absolutely insane stuff. They put up tarps, they set up intense audio monitoring, and they escorted mom, most often it was the mom, into the next room. They then proceeded to film both the child and the mother at the same time, and they would show mom a randomly generated image or word or number, or sometimes even a sentence. Then they would ask the child to spell or type exactly what it was that the mother was seeing from the other room. Now, this is another important thing to note. All of these children were able to communicate by using a type of alternate communication, and most of them use speller boards. And this is where the S2C method of spelling comes in, which we will discuss a little bit later. Some of them used an iPad, but most often it was spellers. And Dickinson's gave us example after example of this process, along with stories from mothers and fathers about instances when their children displayed the ability to read thought. So we see them do this in real time on this podcast. And then we hear testimonies from the parents and the siblings of times where the kids absolutely predicted what they had done during the day. This one mother explained that she, had been gone all day shopping at Target and she had purchased a new pitcher for their kitchen. And upon arriving home, the child asked, "How was the trip to Target?" She didn't tell the child that she went to Target. The child just knew. Absolutely incredible. Many also noted the incredible transformation in the behavior of their children once they, as parents, made the connection that their kids were able to read and understand thought. And as the series progresses, the claims move beyond simple telepathy concepts between a child and a mother to abstract concepts like the hill. And this is, most simply put, a sort of telepathic astral plane where non-speakers are able to meet and communicate with one another. There is one story that they share on these tapes of these two mothers who are living, states apart from each other. They both have children with profound autism, and somehow their children knew each other. I think the boy may have been in Georgia, and then the other one was in North Carolina or some sort of neighboring state. But one of them, the one in Georgia, told his mom about his best friend who lived several hours away that he met while he was on the hill. Now, this little boy's mother assumed maybe it was an imaginary friend or, someone they had met at school, until her son kept insisting that, this boy was real and they really wanted to get together sometime, that they knew each other from meetups at the hill. And so this mother, obviously curious, began using the description her son gave to search on social media to see if maybe she could find this child or this child's family. She connected with a mom who had a son with non-speaking autism that matched the description of the boy that her son had described. And she reached out to the family, and the mom confirmed that, yes, somehow these two boys both knew each other, had become friends with one another, despite living hours away and having never spoke to each other in real life, over social media, over text, anything like that. Stories like these are almost unbelievable, and the telepathy tapes contain dozens. And it's really not hard to understand why the series has been so highly polarizing and has sparked such a massive debate between these believers and the scientific community. But beyond just telepathy, this tape actually brings to light three very unique and important players in this non-speaking game. From a physics level to, spelling and S2C, all the way to presuming competence. But let's start with physics. Why physics, you ask? This is a pop culture podcast. Well, physics, because physics is the study of matter and energy and how these two things interact with one another. Physics tells us that the universe is so much vaster than we can ever truly comprehend or wrap our minds around. We know that matter and energy work together. But what we don't understand is why or how, or why certain species are able to tap into energy in ways that others can't. Think, for example, how dogs are able to smell exponentially better than humans can. They can tap into scents that exist outside our sphere of understanding. Or think how elephants are able to send vibrations through the ground across miles and miles to communicate with each other. That's another level of existence that we as humans don't have the ability to tap into. So when it comes to non-speakers and the question of whether or not they're telepathic, in my mind, honestly, it doesn't seem like that outrageous of a claim. Because first of all, we know that adaptation exists, and not being able to communicate in ways that you or I do using spoken language would make a huge impact on the brain. So it would make sense that their brains and their bodies have adapted to a different method of communication. Similar to how a blind person gains a hyper-intuned sense of smell or ability to feel texture. And second of all, we know that people on the spectrum are already able to tap into sensory experiences that the majority of us just can't comprehend. So if you combine these two factors, it kind of makes sense. I mean, if any group is going to suddenly gain the ability to be telepathic, it seems like it would probably be our non speakers. And especially because, in the majority of cases, although there are exceptions, but in the majority of cases, this telepathy is directly tied to immediate family members. And in some cases, only to them. So now you have, a biological factor playing in. My point is, there's really nothing in physics, adaptation, or biology suggesting that something like this would be impossible. So, can't exactly rule it out. But now, on to spelling to communicate, S2C. So, for a moment, let's operate under this assumption that all non-speakers are able to fully understand and process language and emotion. Maybe they have telepathy, maybe they don't. But either way, they're able to formulate and understand complex thoughts. This means that the non-speaker who you have been treating as a toddler for the past 15 years might actually have the language processing skills of a typical 15-year-old, or maybe even a 20-year-old. They are quite literally experiencing something akin to locked-in syndrome. They're in there, but they don't have a way to express that to anyone. And can you imagine how incredibly frustrating that must be? I mean, I can just imagine for myself personally, if my voice was taken away from me and suddenly everyone started treating me like a toddler, I would probably lose my mind. And yet, this is the reality that so many non-speakers are subjected to every single day. But enter S2C, spelling to communicate. This more controversial form of alternative communication. Honestly, I really don't understand the skepticism around it. To me, it feels the same as a child or adult utilizing a talker device or American Sign Language. I don't fully understand why it's viewed as controversial. It's very confusing. It's very political. And I don't really want to get into all that. But what I will say is I have seen it work. Like, I've seen it with my own eyes and I've heard with my own ears how successful it has been for so many kids and families. In my mind, if it's helping unlock these voices, how bad can it really be? I mean, I'll talk about Wes again for a minute. He went in for a spelling consultation, and the woman facilitating his lesson read him a paragraph about science. And it was a complex paragraph, it was an age-appropriate paragraph, and she read him this whole thing and then proceeded to ask him comprehensive questions. And he would spell out the answers. And he fully comprehended it, and he answered every single question correctly. And this is a child who can't typically string a full sentence together in context, but he's able to understand abstract science concepts and spell out the answers on a speller board. That is amazing. So what really blows my mind right now is the amount of pushback that families who are wanting to implement spelling are experiencing. Right now, in some states, there is actually a movement of legislators actively trying to block families and keep them from accessing S2C communication technology like speller boards. They are quite literally trying to take away the voices of these children. So, from that perspective, the more people who know about spelling and the amazing benefits it can have, the better. Because we're going to need people to keep fighting for these kids and to prevent policies like those from passing and taking away their voices. This method of communication should not be that controversial. And on the official Spelling to Communicate website, they explain this method simply as a method of communication that teaches people with motor challenges purposeful motor skills in order to be able to point to letters to spell as an alternative method of communication. This is because while language is a cognitive skill, speech is a motor skill. So S2C allows for the mastering of one motor skill, pointing to a speller board, to express cognitive language. And they're discovering that many non-speakers are completely able to form complete and articulate thoughts and sentences through this method of communication. It's so easy. I mean, all you need is a pencil, a letter board, and ideally a practitioner who can kind of help guide parents in learning how to facilitate this spelling for their kids. And I would say that, honestly, this is truly the most significant finding behind the telepathy tapes. It's the idea of spelling, and it's the idea of competency. I mean, this podcast essentially proved that the ability to speak is not the mark of intelligence. The essence of spelling is to presume competence of non speaking individuals, right? Assuming that they're able to receive expressive and complex language without any direct teaching, and believing that they have the capacity to learn and to think and to understand. They don't lack the language, they just lack the motor skill to be able to express it. The telepathy tapes accidentally proved the idea when it comes to our non speakers that they're in there. They understand the world around them, and they have complex thoughts and feelings and emotions just like you and I do. And it may even go beyond that. I mean, they may have this savant level of understanding and the ability to quite literally listen into someone else's mind, which is just crazy. I mean, whether or not you believe in this as a possibility, it's kind of a moot point. Because at the end of the day, even if you deny telepathy, it's impossible to deny competency.